What's up, guys? Thanks for coming back to another episode of the YankeesFarm Report. Got a full panel here with me today. Wanted to talk about the end of spring training, what we saw from some of the prospects and some of the Yankees. And as you can see, today I have Marcus back once again. I have Aaron and I have Bobby Malone. What's up, guys?
Hi, everybody.
Good to see you.
Hey, Carlos. How you doing?
Yeah, hanging in there, man. Before we begin, I just want to thank all of you guys for tuning in. As always, I appreciate all of you guys. And remember, if you have any questions, just drop them in the chat. No rhyme or reason to wait. Just drop a message. And as always, I just wanted to thank some of the channel members: Tina, Diver, Tim, Donnie, Joan, SSB, Danafia. And just to give you guys a heads up that I'll have a Wandy Asian video coming up in that section soon, so you should be on the lookout for it. So let's get right into it. The season is about to begin. I think it's on the 27th, Thursday. We've had a full spring training full of prospects, a lot of guys that we saw. Let's just get right into it. Which prospects have stood out to you and put themselves on the radar? Marcus, you can start.
All right. So if Ben Rice is still a prospect, I would say him first. I feel good about what Dominguez did, but when you say prospects, I'm going to go for the low-hanging fruit, George Lombard Jr. I went from feeling like that's a guy I really liked and I was excited about to thinking I think he's a big leaguer and probably a good one. And that's just from what I saw in spring training this year. I felt great about what he did.
And I think we saw that Ben Rice officially made the team. I thought it was announced by Brian Holt.
Yeah.
But he's two at bats over the prospect limit. So we'll classify him as a young Yankee. Go ahead, Aaron.
Yeah, Boone played a little bit of a Boone ball with that one before the game, saying he wasn't going to announce it. Then after the game, they announced that Rice made the roster. So it's good to have that officially done. I would say the prospect that impressed me most, since Marcus took George Lombard, I would probably say Cam Schlittler. He was a guy I really liked in the minor leagues. He was probably the best pitcher. As a matter of fact, didn't he win the minor league pitcher of the year award last week?
Yeah, he was a pitcher of the year in Valley.
Yep. He had a very good season, and he has a good combination of throwing strikeouts and getting ground balls, which is a great combination to success. And just given the pitching situation we're in, with already having Cole lost, Peel's out till maybe at best June. I would say Schlittler isn't the 6th or 7th guy, but if he performs well, I think he's a guy you could see in the majors this year. And by the Yankees' consistent use of him as a starter this spring, even up until I think didn't he start the game against the Mets? Or no, it was Stroman. He started this last week of spring training.
What did he end up with? 4 starts, I think. He might have started 4 games, and that's really not something they usually do, is have a prospect like that start that many times.
Yeah, they obviously like him.
Yeah, they pulled him from the breakout game to give him a start.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. So, I just think, I think it's something that's been said, the Yankees will show you how they feel about prospects. And I think that shows you, even though it is spring training, that shows you a lot that they started him up until, the last week of spring.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, agree there. Bobby?
Well, everybody is taking the first 2 names that that was on my list. The third person I put on the list was Brandon Jones, who was just drafted last July, and someone who follows the draft. They didn't pick any hitters really, I think, until over the 10th round.
The 10th round,
the 12th round.
Yeah. Oh, after. I'm saying after. That's when hitters.
In the 10th round, they took Joe De Los Santos.
Yeah, and then they started picking a bunch of hitters, and I think he was, like you said, the 12th round. So someone who's coming out of college and that kind of part of the draft, you really have to do your scouting, right? Like, you need to know some stuff because you have 12 rounds to get selected before that. So the amount of time he's been playing in terms of either as a defensive replacement or getting some at bats, it really shows me they're pretty much high on him. I would assume that he's starting the year in Hudson Valley, and from there, let's see where he goes to. But that's not that's a pretty good jump for someone who was just drafted less than a year ago.
Yeah. For me, I you guys took the obvious guys, but for me, I had a couple guys that just put themselves back on the map. And the first guy I'm going to mention is Everson Pereira. I thought he had a good shot to make this team, and his issue has never been ability, in my opinion. His issue has always been health, right? It's his Achilles heel. He's not really a guy that I think you can play 2 or 3 times a week. I've said this before. He needs a lot of at bats. He needs a big body of work to show you that there's a payoff to this investment, putting him in the lineup, penciling him in the lineup daily. That was one guy. I think he hit almost 300, if I'm not mistaken. He did hit 2 home runs. He looked good otherwise. He was set down, I want to say maybe 2 weeks ago or so, but he did register about 24 at bats. The other guy that put himself on the radar for me was Cole Gabrielson. He had 375, 4 extra base hits. He took advantage of pretty much every opportunity that was given to him. He's the guy to look out for. I think he ended the season at Somerset, if I'm not mistaken.
I believe so.
Yeah, Brendan Jones was another one. Like you said, Bobby, I love what Brendan Jones did. From the point that he debuted for me, he was one of the most exciting prospects in the organization. And I guess Alexander Vargas is another guy that put some of the shine back on his prospect status. I don't know where he starts the season. It's my guess it's probably going to be Somerset. He needs more time there. If what we saw in spring training is legit, but I'm really happy for him. He's a very happy-go-lucky guy. He's someone to root for, is what I say. And the last guy is Sean Boyle, because Sean Boyle has lost so much time due to injuries, and he's also put some of that shine back on his prospect status.
I'm definitely curious.
Piggybacking on your point about Gabrielson. Sorry about that.
Yeah,
I was just saying, watching Gabrielson play defense really impressed me. So all around, I think he had a good camp.
You were saying, Aaron?
Yeah, I was going to say about Boyle. I'm really interested to see what they're going to do with him because, I was kind of doing the math, and I think I even put out a tweet yesterday or the day before about, my projected rotations for the farm. Because even with all the injuries, there's still a lot of guys who are starting pitchers, and I'm really curious what they're going to do with Boyle because he's missed a lot of time the last 2 years or the last year and a half. And, he's 28 years old. Do they say, hey, we have these younger guys we want to give that lane to? We think you can be more valuable as a reliever? Or are they looking at their current starting situation and saying, crap, if we lose one more guy, it's Alan Winans. And if we lose another after that, it's Messenger or Vreeling or Boyle maybe. So I'm very curious to see how they utilize him this year.
I think they're going to have a lot of options this year. We spoke about this before. They've drafted, what was it, 12 pitchers, I think, 13 pitchers, something like that. So it's going to be interesting to see how they spread those out. Just to get a quick question here from Jonathan, where do you see Lalane at the end of the year? I told you guys in the last episode, Lalane, he had surgery. I think he should be back. I want to say towards the end or to the middle of June. When I did see him at the spring breakout game, he did tell me that he was going to start to throw next month. So we'll see how it goes for him. Hopefully there's no setbacks. It's a big year, I think, for him. He's Rule 5 eligible. So hopefully he looks good from the time that he takes the mound.
Yeah, I think it's just about when he's back, he needs to be healthy. There's no expectation of him reaching a certain level this season. I just want to see him throw, even 50 innings in Tampa, just get on the mound, be able to pitch every, I guess, 6th day it is down there probably, don't have any drop in velocity, just be healthy from the point you get back. That's what you want from Lalane this year. He's still only 20 years old. It's not like we're in a rush with him.
Is he Rule 5 at the end of the year?
Yeah.
He is Rule 5, right?
Yeah. I think he's a candidate for Arizona as well, from what I've gotten from the conversations. So there's also an opportunity for him to get a little bit more work in. And like I said, hopefully he has no setbacks because he needs to be on the mound. Diver's asking, is the panel concerned over how Warren has pitched lately? I'll let you guys answer that. Mark?
Go
ahead, Bobby.
I was going to say, at this point, of the spring training season. Maybe scouts are going around the league and seeing what he is, how me, giving up tipping maybe. I don't know. I doubt that, but we got to see if he's going to be able to, last 4 or 5 innings and go around a cycle or 2 cycles, because he is someone who's going to put the ball on the ground a lot, right? He's a ground ball pitcher. We know that. I wrote a couple of days ago or maybe a week ago, if they could get 4 or 5 innings and 3 and 4 runs out of him for the time being until other people can come back healthy or they make a move, that's something that we just got to live with. I don't think, he's going to be a type of pitcher who's going to shut teams down. Does he have the ability to do it? Absolutely. But when you generate that much contact, it's the loss of nature and something maybe bad could happen. But the way I see him, 4 or 5 inning, 3, 4 runs, keep them in games. That's where you really want to hope that he emerges to this year.
I'd feel worse if I saw diminishing stuff, or they're not yet game planning for people. And I would say that the way they're going to attack hitters regular season might look a little different. I'm just generally concerned about him because he's a rookie, but I've not seen anything recently that would make me any more concerned than I already would be. And I suppose it's also worth saying that there's really no other choice. So he's going to have to take his lumps if things aren't going well. He's going to have to learn at the major league level.
Yeah, I think just the overarching thing I would say to put your 2 points together is, you know, the expectations shouldn't be that high for him to begin with. Obviously, you expect better than the 10 ERA he had last year, but I'm looking at a guy who I want to be around 4 ERA, like 4-ish WHIP. I don't need a guy I need a guy who's going to be a 5th starter, basically. I know that the expectations on him with the injuries may make things seem more urgent. And I understand that Yankee fans like to let their imaginations run loose with him, and I'm sure they'll have harsh things to say if he has some struggles, but I don't need him to be pitching like the 3rd starter, which he technically is right now. I just want to see him make, evolutions to his game as, these first few weeks go on. So I'm not worried yet. It'll definitely see where we are in April before I start saying whether he should be up or not.
And developmentally, they definitely let him throw a lot of innings at AAA. So he's prepared, I think, to go 150, 60, 70 innings if he can do that. So, and that's really what they need is innings. Someone's going to have to fill the innings that they've lost. And if he's a 5-inning guy, if he's Marcus Stroman, I think they can deal with that.
Yeah, I think he's also led the team in spring training in innings pitched. And I'm in agreement with Aaron. You have to just keep throwing him out there. The hope is that he'll give you 5 innings a start, and that he'll keep your team in the game. That's my hope for him. He's gonna have to take his lumps. I would caution the Yankee fans not to expect Louis Heel of the first half of last season. But like Aaron said, somebody who can give you 5 innings, maybe keep the opposition to 3 runs or less, and we'll take it from there.
Right.
I would also echo that. I think it is very telling that with the acquisition of Ryan Yarbrough, in addition to having Yo-Yo Gomez, that's 2 guys that are 2-3 inning guys. I think they're prepared for a pitching staff who is probably going to be 5 and out more often than not. When you think of Rodon and Stroman, and I think Fried really is the only one you can count on going 6+ innings, these first couple months. So I think it's not coincidental that you bring in another guy you can trust to go 2-3 innings every 3rd day, basically.
And as Yankee fans, we've seen Yarbrough as a ray come in after their opener and like, okay, great, they should light this guy up, and they never did. They could never touch this guy. So maybe it's a bias. I thought that was a sneaky good move by them, because he eats innings when your starter gets in trouble, or if you do have to go with an opener, there's a guy who can come in and he's got experience doing it.
If you think about it, the key to the season could be Yarbrough and Gomez. I mean, both of them, we could see them both pitch somewhere between 60 and 100 innings. I mean, each of them, they both could do multiple innings. And you're talking about, like you just said, the fifth, sixth, seventh innings. You do that twice a week because these starters are not maybe going 5 or 6, and if they keep them in games, those are the real MVPs of the team because they give you the chance to win it or they hold the game. So it's gonna be. I think that's gonna be the interesting part of seeing how Matt Blake juggles around the arms that he does have that are healthy.
And just wanted to note real quick, Yoendrys Gomez pitched, I think it was almost 12 innings in the spring training. Didn't allow a single run.
He's looked good, and I'm glad he's not that I think he wasn't going to make it just with the options and the injuries, but he's earned that spot regardless.
Absolutely. Eric here is asking in extremely small sample size. I thought Lagrange looked good. At the spring breakout game, he did look really good. I think there was some jitters in the first inning. I said or I saw. I want to say he gave a 1 run. It was mostly due to that bad pickoff attempt, but he settled down after that hit and he looked really good. My hope for him is health and that the command has improved a little bit, and the sky's the limit for Lagrange.
Yeah, Jim Callis was calling the game, and he said if he pitches like this, we're going to see him in the Futures game this summer, which I thought was a big thing to come out and say.
I mean, I see 2 paths for him. I think he could be like a very good number 2. He fixes the command issues, or if not, Dylan Betances. That's what I see.
I mean,
we'll take that.
Listen, I think that saying a pitcher's going to be moved to relief is like almost like a taboo thing at times. But you got to that's you hit it right, Dylan Betances. That's a great outcome for a player. The most encouraging thing to me though from that outing is, and I believe Smith Brinkner, who is in attendance from Baseball Prospectus, said it. He was holding 100 into the 4th inning. That's pretty good for a guy who has had injury issues these last few years. If he's going to be holding his velocity through starts, that's a reason to believe, okay, maybe he will be able to remain a starter. Obviously, he's still very early on in his journey, but that's the most encouraging thing to me from, like you said, a small sample size, but that's huge if he can sustain that throughout the season.
Now, he's also, I believe, Rule 5, right?
No, he signed in the IFA class after Lalane.
Okay, the year after, so he's got 1 more year. Okay.
Yeah. One thing I wanted to point out, or switching topics, I did want to point out, I think it was in yesterday's lineup. I saw 5 young Yankees in the lineup, or 5 Yankee prospects in the lineup, 6 if you included Judge. I can't remember the last time I saw that. And to me, that just, and I know Yankee fans hate talking about it because they don't believe in the Yankees development, but I mean, the numbers speak for themselves, right? You have 6 homegrown guys in the starting lineup.
And it's amazing considering the amount of trading we've done over the last, 3-4 years. So we've traded probably 40 plus prospects at this point. That's impressive that you have 5-6 guys you've developed internally who are also, not looking just, Austin Wells could be a top 5 catcher in the league this year. Anthony Volpe is, a 2-time Golden Glove nominee, 1-time winner, and probably will be a nominee again. Jason Dominguez could very well be AL Rookie of the Year. It's very encouraging to see them, despite all the trading, which has led to their prospect system being, in the bottom half of the league. Still a lot of young guys contributing to this team, despite all the trades.
It also hurts when you screw up your big investments. And for a long time, their first-round picks didn't amount to anything, or they traded them. Now you got Wells, Volpe, Schmidt's on the team, top of your IFA market with Dominguez. Those are, Wells and Volpe are nailed first-round picks for picking at the back of the first round. And I know Judge is 100 percentile outcome. You said you got a Hall of Famer there, but that's a really big deal when you're hitting on your first-round picks.
Yeah, but when they changed the system back, and I believe it was the fall of 2018, and they started redoing the draft, redoing scouting, redoing everything, and now it's 6 years later. What I do say is, bringing up the 5 or 6 kids, it's sort of like a double-edged sword, right? If they do well, do not expect free agents next year to be signed, because Hal is going to see this, knows he's saving money. Why is he now going to drop money into players? That's the thing, and if you followed Hal, at least in the past 10 years, that's always has been his thing, to nourish a system where he doesn't have to go out and spend money in the free agent market. So I do wonder if they do very well this year with the five. I mean, you could have up to, including the pitchers, you could have well over 10, players under the age of 27. And I think, I count Jazz as one of them. Jazz, I think, is a free agent after next year. But the rest of everybody else got multiple years of control. So if they win the AL East, and I don't know what they do in October, but they go, pretty deep, does he go out and get, look at Vlad, look at Tucker, look whoever is out there, knowing that, the young kids produced.
I wonder who they could sell him on, and we'll have a better idea at the end of the year. Like, who would you look down now and say, we can sell you on bringing this guy up next year or in a year and a half and being in the fold? I don't know that there's a lot. It's not the same as having a Dominguez now, or you could say, or a Ben Rice. I wonder who the next guy is outside of Spencer Jones, maybe.
Even Pereira. I mean, if Pereira is, I mean, the way I look at it, if Pereira is hitting the month of April and into May, and they need a right-hand bat, he's on the 40. You got to figure he's going to, probably come up. So between Pereira and Spencer Jones, and I'm going to assume Bellinger has a big year. If Bellinger has a big year and he loves being a Yankee, I don't know if they take he takes a hometown discount having Boris, but I think he may make it feasible where he might want to stay here given the dimensions of Yankee Stadium and so forth. But and they have a pretty crowded outfield to begin with too, because Judge and you hope Dominguez flourishes this year, so they got some bodies out there.
But then you might be able to slide him over to first base, and you could worry about, now you could talk about Spencer into center field.
Exactly. Yeah.
I mean, ideally to me is you qualify, offer him, and if he has a good season, let him go.
Yeah, and like I said, that is the best case scenario. We're talking on the road, but I do think they do. They do have some. I wish they had more bats in the system. I think the system as a whole is very light on bats, especially on the higher levels. But Pereira and Jones as your top two bats, and both of them, would it surprise you? You saw them both in an outfield this August, or this September. It could definitely well happen. I mean, it could even happen earlier if things still go right. Yeah, it could happen.
Rafael Flores, another bat after them.
There's a guy who's come a long way, and to have the manager say that he's a dude, that's important. I think there's a guy who I would have said, last year, or how about in the offseason, he's on Baseball America's top 10 prospects, and I thought, oh man, and I still wasn't a believer yet, even though I thought he was a good player. And now I'm starting to think, well, they're carving a path for him, and that might be a guy where you say there's a role for him in the future, near future.
Yeah, I think we're talking about Rafael Flores, right?
Yeah, it's Rafael Flores.
Yeah,
it's incredible. And sorry, maybe if this is shifting the conversation into a different topic, but it's incredible the work the Yankees have done the last, I would say, 2 or 3 seasons in finding these more under the radar prospects, these undrafted free agents, these late round picks, and turning them into something. Obviously, Ben Rice is the most obvious scenario right now, and he probably went later because he didn't play 2020 or 21 because of COVID at Dartmouth. The Ivy League season was canceled in 2021. So that's he's looking like a guy who can easily be a 120 plus OPS hitter this year, I truly believe. Then you look at a guy we didn't draft technically, but Caleb Durbin was not hitting much when Atlanta. We traded for him, Lucas Licky. He comes here, looks really good. And we use him to get one of the best closers in baseball. Rafael Flores, I don't think is as polished as Ben Rice is at this point, but he has a lot of power. He has a pretty good bat. I think it's something where he is, I'm not sure what it looks like with Wells, Rice, and Flores. That's like three catchers, with two of them not really being catchers. With I'm not sure how good Flores and Rice are at first baseman, but it could be a very interesting platoon, or Flores is a good trade piece. But developing guys like that, or Jackson Castillo, that's or Brendan Jones, who I think I'm being a little hyperbolic and sarcastic when I say this, but I think it could be this year's Christian Campbell, of a later round draft pick that blows up.
Yeah.
I understand Campbell was a 4th rounder or 5th rounder, and I don't think Brendan Jones is going to be one of the top prospects in baseball, but I think he could be a very good top 20 prospect in the system. And that's how you build a good team, especially when you're spending, you do have a relative cap, and a lot of it's spent on guys who unfortunately aren't able to contribute right now, like Stanton and Cole and LeMahieu and Hicks, and the list goes on, unfortunately.
I mean, piggybacking off of what you said, let's also remember that the Yankees traded for Michael King many years ago, right?
Yeah.
Martin Prado.
And then the Yankees also traded for Luis Gil for, who was it? Was it
Nick
the
Cave.
Cave.
Yeah, for Nick Cave. And look what they turned him into. So it boggles me when I see Yankee fans continuously harping on this. The Yankees can't develop guys. The Yankees can't develop guy thing.
I think it more than anything is, and this is what I think annoys, and I speak to a lot of those fans, right? When I interact with them, I think what they're annoyed with is that and mostly it comes with two teams, the Dodgers and the Rays, because for the most part, let's be honest, the Dodgers and the Rays are picking towards the end of the draft like the Yankees. And they are developing hitters at a higher pace. Now, I'm not saying they're becoming anything, but the Dodgers, like how they draft, and someone who watches the draft and seeing how they're drafting in the 2nd and the 3rd and the 4th round, and those consistent,
hitting.
They're hitting on every pick. Now, I'm not saying the Yankees don't hit on every pick, because in the past 15, 20 years, they have to produce so many relief pitchers on the back ends of the draft and stuff. It's how they're doing this. But besides the Dodgers and the Rays, pretty much every other team, unless you have those bad years and you're picking higher, you're going to get better talent. But for the most part, the Yankees, I don't think they appreciate what they are doing. And I mean, like, you had two of the top 3 last year, right? And then the year before you had Volpe, right? I mean, it's not that it's what it is. I believe this is, they're not flashy. They're not getting the baseball American top 10 or
I think it's the stars. They're just not developing stars quickly enough for them.
Yeah. And this is what I always said. I would rather have pieces that are young kids, like Wells was and like Volpe is, right? Than pieces than having, let's say, 3 of, like Boston this year. I think Boston has 3. I might be wrong. 3 of the top 15 prospects in the game. I still think at the end of the day, those prospects, I don't know, turn the page and become something, or they fizzle out. I would rather have what we're currently having, where you're maybe maturing a little more and then coming up, and then you're producing. So I mean, they could say all they want, but like I think Aaron just said too, how many trades have been made using those prospects to flourish the past at least 3 or 4 years? They're drafting players, and I say this all the time, they're not really drafting players for their major league team. They're drafting players for other teams, major league teams, and making trades.
Yeah, we're not the Dodgers, unfortunately. It's they do it so well. We have a few more years to get to that, but you kind of look at the lifespan of what has happened. You pointed, 2019, that's when they did their overhaul of, their draft process, their player development process. And it wasn't really implemented until 2021, because there was, it was only that draft, that 2019 MLB draft where they got Volpe. Then it was COVID. So it's really only been four seasons of this new development process. And I would say the first batch of returns were quite good. I think in setting up any sustainable process, there's going to be bumps, which is what I think we experienced last year. I don't think that's something saying, oh, we're not, I still think the Yankees are probably in the second tier of MLB teams in terms of development. Dodgers and Rays are in that first tier. I think we're right in that second tier with the Braves. I think the Tigers are kind of putting in there right now. They've done a lot of good stuff. But I mean, I think we're clearly one of the top 5-6 teams in terms of developing talent right now. And I think, this lull we had last year is just helping prepare us to lift us back up again. I don't know if we're ever going to be top 5 consistently like the Dodgers with the amount of prospects we trade. If we keep spending money unwisely, it's not going to, definitely won't happen, but it's something that they're clearly building in the right direction to. And it's something that takes, 6, 7, 8 years to really build that sustainability level with.
People can get frustrated. I'm sorry, Carlos.
Piggybacking up on what you said real quick, Bobby, you probably would know better. In the 2020 draft, wasn't it just 2 rounds, I think, that year?
No, they only had 3 picks because it was 5 rounds.
Okay.
And that was the year they signed Cole, so there was 2 picks. So they got the kid from Arizona State, and then they got
Wells in that draft.
There is Austin Wells, Halver, who they traded in the Gallo trade, and Beckway, who they traded in the Benintendi trade.
So they only had the 3. But, I mean, you are right on that. I just want to say one thing very quickly, and it's amazing. I think I might be the oldest. Marcus, I don't know how, maybe we're around the same age, in our 40s.
I used to be in my 40s.
God bless you. Remember this then. I think this could be the most amount of young players they have had on their team since the early 90s. So you remember Jeff Johnson area? Remember those teams?
Yes, I do.
And those teams stunk.
This is a different caliber of young player than they had back then. Yeah.
We're coming off the World Series, and we, like I just said, Los just mentioned it. We're going to have 5, 6. We're probably going to have 6 young players under 27 in the lineup, probably starting Thursday or this weekend, right? Mm-hmm. That was never the case. So as long as we're doing this stuff, fans should really appreciate it. They always talk about, let's get the kids, let's get these young players. Well, they haven't, right? They got them now.
And that was something I was going to say in reference to what we were talking about earlier, is that Tampa doesn't have a choice but to play their kids, right? And to me, that's the final step of the development, is getting that major league exposure. And Yankee fans, millennials and Gen Z, they've never really seen this, right? My shortstop was Alvaro Espinosa.
Let me see. I mean, I started my first season I remember was 2003.
Like Owen,
that was the first season I remember.
It was bad. It was bad until Tony Fernandez came here, and by that, Tony Fernandez was already old.
But you make a key point right there. See, that's the difference. Back then, they would hype up these players, and Marcus, like I said, and Los, you remember, they would hype them up to the point, and then they would just stink. The difference is between the scouting. Like, there's so many analytics out there, and I'm both sides on that, right? But between like the barrel and stuff, I might be wrong, and you guys, you tell me how you feel. It is really hard to miss out on prospects nowadays, because there's so many metrics out there that, when you see all these things, like, let's look at Ben Rice right now, right? Let's talk about Ben Rice. The spring that he's having indicates that he should have a good year. I'm not saying a great year, but he should be.
All the metrics tell you that.
Right? It's there. For him not to get that level, something horribly went wrong. If maybe it's in the head or whatever, but you feel that he could be a 20 home run, 750, 725 OPS guy. It's there. It's showing that there. Whether it comes to fruition is the other thing. But most of the time, in today's society, today's baseball society, it hits.
And there's so much information available to everybody at the major league level that if you have a hole, it's going to get exploited by somebody. If you have a weakness, and then if you got your ears open and people are saying you can't do this and you're getting booed, like, there's just so much that goes into it. And the big leagues are so difficult, such a huge leap from AAA. I think maybe that's something the Yankees are doing better now, is developing at the big league level.
Yeah.
You didn't have a lot of prospect noise across the media landscape for Austin Wells or Luis Heel. but there they are, 2 of the top 3 in the rookie of the year. So I think back to Robinson Cano was not a hyped prospect.
They tried to throw him in the Randy Johnson deal, and
Yep.
I think Arizona was like, "Nah, I don't."
No, the A-Rod deal. It was the A-Rod deal.
Oh, the A-Rod deal. And they were like,
they chose Joaquin Arias.
Yeah.
So,
Thank gosh.
I wonder sometimes if the media side of things gets so sick and tired of hearing it from Yankee fans that they just tamp down on Yankee prospects anyway. Like, we don't want to hear about another one. That sometimes they don't give the proper credit to what they actually are doing or what their potential can be.
Right.
Just seeing them be successful and I know there was complaint about, well, it was the next wave was supposed to be Gary Sanchez and these guys, and they had their moments, but it's really hard to be Aaron Judge. And so if these guys are progressing at the major league level, which like you're seeing that from Wells, I think so far this spring, and maybe Volpe continue to get better, that's really what you want. Get them to graduate and then they keep improving. That's the ideal situation. For the Dodgers side of it, they're not winning the World Series without Mookie Betts and Freddie Freeman. So they can't just say we are a development machine and that's how we won. That's a big part of it, but they have a lot of players who they did not draft and develop who are important to them.
And I just want to make a very quick point, since we're talking about it. Anthony Volpe, that's a developmental win. That is a everyday player, maybe not the best hitter, and obviously we should, as Yankee fans, have better expectations of what he should be if he's going to remain the starting shortstop for the next 3 and beyond years. But a late first round pick to already have 6+ WAR in only 2 seasons, like, he's a developmental win. That's you may say first round draft pick, of course he should be an MLB player. That's not how this really works in the MLB. It's so hard to get from draft day to the pros. So I think it's just, we should appreciate these are draft wins they've had with Wells, with Rice, with Volpe, with, I guess Heel wasn't, but Schmidt. I don't know if they have any draft picks in the bullpen, but even guys who do hit there, like Raiselman, when eventually he gets there.
That's Will Warren counts in that too.
Yeah, a 7th round. He was a 7th round pick. Right. I mean, everywhere they go, and then there's these past couple of years where, they picked Jones and then Lombard and then last year Hess. So, and all 3 of them could be wearing pinstripes in the next 2 years. I would say even, I don't want to say sooner, but Jones, yes, but the other 2 in the next year or 2. So yeah, those are hits.
Mm-hmm. On that note, what do you guys think of this?
It's just tricky. I mean, I think he's going to be a major league player. I just don't know what he's going to be in the major leagues.
I was having a conversation today about that, and I said, look, I mean, if you take away the strikeouts, which is huge, every other number looks good. Every other number looks good. And I think it's just a matter of the Yankee fans. If you want to see him, you're going to have to live with this. You're going to have to live with a 30-something strikeout rate.
Because he's different. I mean, the home run he hit against the Mets yesterday, who else hits a ball like that? There are not a lot of guys. He didn't square that up necessarily. I mean, it's a mistake pitch, but it's not like he turned on it and hit it 7 miles. I mean, he just hit the ball really hard in the air and it went out.
It was effortless.
That's not something you find for everybody.
Besides one soda, there's only one other guy I can really think of that hits it like that, James Wood. But James Wood's another tall, athletic freak who strikes out a fair amount. But I think I said this last time you had me on, Carlos. There were 5 guys who had 30% strikeout rates in the MLB, and were qualified hitters. Zach Geloff, who still a promising prospect, but not looking as good. But Ellie De La Cruz, O'Neill Cruz. God, one of them slipping my mind, but Logan O'Hoppe, who's a solid-looking catcher for the A's. Those are solid, good players. One of them is a budding superstar in the league. I don't need Spencer Jones to be as good as Ellie De La Cruz, but if he's striking out 32% of the time, if he's hitting 25, if he's doing a 25-25 season with his good defense, that's a good role player to have on a team. That's what we should be aspiring for Jones to be right now. Is let's just get him to being a everyday starter. I don't care about him being a superstar right now. Let's just get him into a place where he's just a guy you can put in the lineup, maybe even like the 6th spot, and he's going to give you those, give you good stuff on the bases, good stuff in defense, and it'll give you the home runs and a lot of strikeouts.
I mean, I think the perfect comp is O'Neal for me, and I said this since day one, is O'Neal Cruz. I think that's the more realistic. I think, like you just said, I think 20 to 30. I don't think he's a 40, 50 stolen base guy. But, I mean, the height and which is about, I think he's 6'6". I think O'Neal Cruz maybe 6'7", or something like that. Or
7 on paper, yeah.
Yeah, something like that. So I think everybody's got to just look past the strikeouts. I think that's the only thing. He's going to strike out. He is going to strike out. And even if it's, I mean, I live in the Philadelphia area, so I see Schwarber all the time. Well, everybody's, Schwarber, walks a lot too, but he also strikes over 200 times a year. That's not peanuts. He keys a lot.
I will say, I can't remember the name of the guy who made the comment. I just, trying to be as rational and have as much perspective on the situation as possible. I would say I lean more likely that he doesn't become an everyday player than he does, but I still think we're seeing him make improvements. He is, for a 24-year-old, he is very raw in terms of his experience, given he only had one full season of hitting in college. So it's, maybe it's a guy he doesn't break out till he's 26, but hey, Ben Rice is 26 and it's Yankee fans couldn't be more excited about him. So I don't think there's any need to stress about him as long as you don't have this expectation of him being a star.
What I always say, if Spencer Jones or a lot of these players that Yankee fans like love to hate, if they were on other teams, they were like, why don't we have them?
That's why I couldn't get the name of Joey Gallo out of my head.
Jesus Christ.
What if he's that? Are Yankee fans going to allow him to be that kind of a player in New York, or would he be better off someplace else where he doesn't have to hear it?
I said it before when the Yankees announced that trade. I was like, what the hell are we doing? Yankee fans have no patience for this. Yankee fans do not have the patience for a guy who's going to strike out 40% of the time. Absolutely no way. And
I'm with you.
Pretty much the guy was scared to leave his house by the time he left.
Yeah, so that's the thing. It was between the 2 years. If he was Joey Gallo when he was 40 plus, like he could be still with the Yankees now. The difference is he just couldn't hit water if he fell off a boat. That was the difference. You know what I mean? So if he was putting up decent power numbers, 35 to 45 home runs, you could live with the stuff. I don't think, I don't see anything in Spencer Jones where I think he would be effective. He's got to be a smart kid. He went to Vanderbilt, right? So he's not like, some schlep or anything like that. So I think, like you just said, 2 more years this year, he's going to be probably, I guess he's going to be in AAA, I assume. And he'll still have, he'll be 25. Remember, Aaron Judge came up at 25. His first, first year, his rookie year, he was 25. So people think Spencer Jones is 27, 28. The kid's 24. He's on par of what he's supposed to be.
And Aaron Judge had a rough start with the strikeouts. So, but again, between the ears, like you said, Aaron Judge is special. And the adjustments he's made at the major league level have brought him where he is. So, it's not a guy physically that he's a unicorn, Spencer Jones. So I think he should have his chances here. It's just a matter of whether the Yankees will be patient enough to let him do it here.
Yeah.
I think, and another thing, I think many baseball fans don't realize baseball players weren't typically 6'7", 6'8", right? Baseball player was about 6 feet tall. This has just been over the last few years that you've been seeing these 6'6", 6'7".
You remember Darryl? Strawberry? That was the freak.
Outliers.
Yeah.
Strawberry, who was the big guy from the Reds and the White Sox?
Well, there was Dunn. Adam
Dunn.
Adam Dunn was pretty big. And the one from the Brewers, I forgot his name, Richie Sexton. He was a big guy too. But,
thousands.
They weren't
as legend.
This is the difference.
They weren't as athletic as Judge.
Yeah, they weren't athletic. I mean, Spencer Jones is truly there's that thing with the athletic that he's a 101.
Right.
I mean, in terms of speed, in terms of throwing. And I don't know who one of you guys said it too, right? If strikeouts are the only thing, so he strikes out, but he's playing like elite defense and he's hitting home runs. You guys probably know better than me. That's like a 3 or 4 WAR. I mean, are you going to lose your mind because of K if he's putting up a 3 or 4 WAR in a few years? I don't know.
That's what I find so interesting about him. If you cover up the strikeouts on the stat line, do you like this player? I like that guy.
Everything else looks good.
Take it away. What if he makes all of his outs striking out, but his numbers look good as long as you don't pay attention to that?
As
a
much
lot of guys like that.
As much as I hate strikeouts, I hate that grounded double play even more.
Oh, yeah.
I think I forgot which one of you said it, but would Yankee fans would he be similar to Joey Gallo? I think the one thing or two things that will separate him from Joey Gallo are on the base paths. If he gets on base, which he should, it should be a lot of fun. And I think when he starts making some highlight reel plays in center field, because he's not a gold. I would say he's a Gold Glover, but he's definitely an above average center fielder. When they start seeing him move out there, that's going to get Yankee fans' attentions. And as long as he's not striking out, 40+% of the time, I think that'll buy him some patience whenever he does make it, which I'm at this point, I would say 2026 is the more likely outcome, but we'll see.
Agreed. Bobby, for you.
Any chance we see Hess this year?
Yeah.
No, I don't think so.
If he was on the Angels.
Yeah, right. Ryan Johnson just got called up. I do think Hess and Cunningham are. I don't think it's. I'll put it this way. I don't think it's impossible they don't hit that's Triple A, Double A this year. But I think they're going to go slow with them.
Absolutely.
This year, last year's draft class. There are a few interesting names. Those two, Gage Zeal. Griff Herring is another one. I know there was a few that had Tommy. There's one with Tommy John, right? Thatcher Hurd. Yeah, Thatcher Hurd had Tommy John.
Marcos.
And I don't know what they're doing with Carter, Grayson Carter. I don't know if they're starting him or putting him in the pen.
It looks like he's going to go out as a starter.
Yeah, it seems that way. So, you watched the Futures game, right? Whatever that thing was a couple of weeks ago, the minor league game. He looked good and stuff, but you got to start their 40. Let's use common sense. How Cash does the 40-man and starting clocks. They really have to have a glowing review to start that kid's clock. I think we're looking this year. If we see, I think there's a better chance we see Cam Schiller than anybody who got drafted last year.
If Ben Hess is in the major leagues this year, that means Hal will have to build like a hospital ward next to Steinbrenner Field, because that means they've got dozens and dozens of guys hurt.
And I'm a little disappointed. I think maybe if I asked you last week, like Ben Shields was a pitcher last year that I was really looking forward to. He was on the older side, 26, but it seems like he's been laid up. Brock Selvage is another pitcher. Yep. They don't have many lefties. Somebody I've been reading a lot about and has been looking good on there is Kyle Carr.
Who?
Carr. Yeah.
Oh, Kyle Carr. Yeah.
Sorry, so he could be somebody that I don't think goes to the major leagues, but they're very short on lefties. I know that I for myself, I doing the draft coverage that I do and looking, at this year's draft, it's still very strong with arms and just thinking ahead. I still think they're going to draw because there's so many arms. What did the White Sox lose? 6 arms to Tommy John surgery?
Jesus.
Right, in this month. So you can never have enough arms. And I don't know, it was I think maybe Mark, as you were talking about, like who, if somebody gets hurt, who's coming up from the farm. You better hope in the next 2 months nothing really serious happens, because the depth down there, Cam might be up here. Alan, what's his name? Alan Wyatt. Yeah. Do you want to, so it wouldn't surprise me in the next 24 hours if we see a move or two just for some kind of AAA depth to just
you could see some guys like Zach Messenger or maybe even Bailey Dees at Scranton after a couple months might be put on that poll for next
year.
Well,
I thought
Vreeling at all in spring training?
Huh?
Did Vreeling pitch at all for the big league club in spring training?
No, I didn't see him at all. No.
Him or Messenger didn't.
But those guys aren't listed as injured, right?
Well, they're not on the 40 man. I know, but Messenger got in. They pitched the whole.
I think Messenger got into 2 games.
I think,
Maybe.
Aaron, I think, was it you who put out that, and I thought it was really cool. You put out the 4 levels in the pitching list.
Yeah, he did.
That was pretty. I mean, and who the starters could be at the 4 levels.
I tweeted that.
You did that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was me. Yep.
I thought it was really good but the thing is, I haven't seen any minor league. I don't want to say rosters, but any minor league games. Usually by this time of the year, we have seen minor league rosters to take a guess to see who's healthy, who has not been healthy. So I kind of do wonder if there's some injuries down there that we do not know just yet, but by this weekend, they kind of, trickle out.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely like Messenger is in good position. This is what I was saying at the opening, why it's, I'm very curious what will happen with it because, with how Schlittler was pitching day in and day out, obviously they brought in Winans now he's probably the next guy up once an injury happens. But I don't think they're going to go to Edgar Barclay. I know they like Sean Boyle, but I'm not sure if that's where it goes to. So it's going to be one of Schlittler, Messenger, or Vreeling, maybe D's, but I would go with the Messenger of Vreeling first, unless they bring someone in.
Did you have Schlittler starting at Scranton?
So want me to just read through it? I have it right here.
Yeah, I don't remember what it was, but I saw it.
So I have Schlittler and AA. I just think Messenger, D's, and Vreeling, since they had that whole season in AA last year, it makes sense for them to go up. Winans obviously is the 6th starter, is going to be in AAA. Edgar Barclay will probably stay there. And then Sean Boyle I have as a starter for now. But, I think Schlittler only pitched like 20 innings in AA last year. I don't think you put him up until June, probably.
Who did you have at Somerset?
Somerset? Oh, yeah. So Somerset, I had Cam Schlittler. I had Kyle Carr. I think, he just having the full season and A+ last year and having that better start at the end of the season. I think, it's in a position where they trust his stuff. They trust where his head's at. So you got to see what he's made of now. I had Baron Stewart. He's one of those guys who's, I don't really think he's a prospect, but also he does way better than I expect him to. He's good organizational depth. Elmer Rodriguez Cruz, I think, will be in AA. Sebastian Keane / Jackson Fristow. They weren't great in A+ and didn't have the greatest length, but we're in this weird spot where, that 6th spot I gave to Brendan Beck just because of his age. But, I don't think they would start Cade Smith or Ben Hess or Bryce Cunningham there, but they might surprise us.
I mean, it's truly amazing. Like you could draft these players, right? But that I don't want to say 1/3, but it's almost like close to 1/3. Injuries just happen. So like last year when they drafted like 10 straight arms or 11 straight arms, whatever it was, I don't see that being an issue when that it's pitches just break down.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder what they have for metrics on that, like what they consider par for the course and what they consider an anomaly. I mean, they're starting the major league team is going to have 25% of their 40-man roster on the IL to start the season. That's a lot. So I wonder if that's how they view it, as like, all right, this is out of the ordinary, or like we have to be prepared to lose a quarter of our players. And
and that's just how baseball is now.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at the Dodgers. I mean, obviously they won the World Series, but they were pitching with, Walker Buehler had just returned from injury. Yamamoto had missed a chunk of the season. I can't even remember who their 3rd starter was. Flaherty they had to trade for. Bobby Miller was gone. Dustin May was gone. They lost. Kershaw was obviously. I think it's just the reality of the situation where pitching is king, but pitching is also freaking volatile as hell. Excuse me. And I like the Yankees draft strategy because they do pitching best. And they're in this weird spot where 3 guys in their rotation are locked in for the next 4 years, at least. 2 of them are the next 4 years. Obviously, Fried's the next 8. Realistically, there's only 2 true spots in the rotation to compete for. I think we could see Clark Schmidt being someone who's traded for hitting depth, and I think you see that a trade like Kansas City made trading Brady Singer for Jonathan India. I feel like with 9 spots out in the field, plus bench, I think if you build up so much pitching, yeah, some guys will not work out. Some guys will succumb to nonstop injuries, looking at Brendan Beck. But if you have, we had 10 pitchers this draft class. If we have 2 turn into legit prospects, and that can be MLB contributors or traded for a huge piece, I think pitching moves the needle in terms of trades more than hitters. And if we're the best at pitching, then just go all in on that, and you can make the moves to improve elsewhere through trades and free agency. I think someone at the beginning of the episode on the comments I saw they're afraid of signing pitchers. I get it. It's scary when you're signing a 29-year-old to a 6, 7, 8-year deal. And the way to not do that is to draft a lot of these guys, develop
Yeah,
their stuff, and
absolutely.
let them be in the rotation. And we haven't gotten to a point where we could do that because, like I said, like Bobby said, it was 2019. We implemented these changes. We didn't really start getting all these guys into the system till 21. And the guys we did, like Ken Waldachuk and Wisniewski, were traded. There's another Drew Thorpe was traded, so we haven't actually had the chance to see us develop a true starting ace. I think this class we just saw could really start to be the beginning of it.
And I mean, like when it comes to the draft too, like they've put most of their time and effort into the Cape Cod League, right? So most of those arms that come over there from even last year, 70-80% of those players played on the Cape. And even with this year, like this upcoming draft over here is extremely pitcher heavy. So it wouldn't surprise me. Now the only problem is this year their draft picks are very limited and far between. So as a draft geek like myself, seeing the Dodgers and the Dodgers I think have 3 in the top 100 or 4 in the top 100, but the Rays and the O's have 6. Yankees have the 38th pick, and then their next pick is 104. So they only have, and this is a pretty good class, unless cash trades for a comp pick between now and June. You're going to see a lot of talented players go off the board before they get to us. I'm not saying they're not going to be there because you're still going to find them, but those teams who have those picks this year are going to get some really good players.
It's incredible to me that losing Juan Soto will net you, what was it, a 4th round pick?
A second. It was a second. It was the 4th. That's right, the 4th round. Yeah, and they got lucky.
It's going to be an interesting draft
because they got lucky because when they signed Fried, I mean, one of the second round pick, that second Soto pick stayed with us. Their pick, I believe, left. So, they could have been down 3 picks like as they were after they signed Cole. I'll take 4 picks in 5 rounds, but I think the biggest thing that what annoys me is seeing teams making trades to get comp picks. Like the Guardians, I believe, traded for a comp pick. The Dodgers traded for a comp pick. The Rays traded for, especially when you're mentioning like the talent that is breaking down. Instead of like, for an example, I'm not saying that this is going to happen or whatever, but like Oswald, Peraza, he could have been traded for a comp pick. Now I don't think you could get anything for him. I mean, this is what I'm talking about, like in the fall or even last year. So when you have the talent and you squeeze everything, you have nothing left to trade. It kind of hurts, adding to the system.
Right. Meanwhile, the league is handing out picks to playoff teams in the name of competitive balance.
Yeah.
And I still cannot figure out why a team should have to surrender a draft pick to sign a free agent. I don't get it. I can understand giving one to the team that lost them. I don't see why you have to give something up to be punished for signing a player. I don't
Not like that in football, right?
Yeah.
I think it's hard to comprehend not knowing the full financial figures for these teams, the true discrepancy of how the TV deals work and all the intricacies of the financials. I do understand there's probably some need for these, but I think that some of the ways these competitive balance issues have gone is a little crazy. You know, I understand why they have the comp 1A round, the comp 2A round. I think though that the current setup of, you know, why can't a qualifying offer sign and a qualifying offer remove and a qualifying offer guy leaving, why those can't counteract? Why can't we just be at a normal draft class right now? But that's, you know, that's something that we have to live with for the next couple of years. Hopefully it's something they can you know, figure out by the draft, you know, by the next what's it called? CBA,
Collective bargaining, yeah.
because it is annoying right now. But that's the reality of the situation they're in, and you know the Yankees are trusting Damon Oppenheimer and the staff to, you know, find guys, and you know I think that 2023 class where they didn't have the second and fifth round picks, it's, you know, George Lombard. You know, obviously looks great. He could be a top 30 prospect or higher by the end of the season. Then you look at the other picks. You know, Kyle Carr's on shaky ground. Rock Riggio didn't have the greatest season. Sixth round for Cade Smith looks solid, but he's not, you know, as exciting as Chase Hampton was. You know, maybe they learned something from that 23 class and how to deal with losing these picks. Obviously, you know, having a second, fourth round pick makes it a little easier, but it's still not as ideal.
Do you see any changes to the CBA, Bobby? Any major changes?
Well, I mean, they were talking about like this. I mean, Paston was on today saying that there's a good chance, you know, of a work stoppage in December, and they're going to be. I mean, we go through it. I've been going through this, and I'm sure our older friends here. So we've been, yeah. I mean, you got 94. Do they want to? It's going to be the same thing next or 2 years. Yeah, 2 years is going to be like it was a couple of years ago, where baseball is going to stop in December the 1st, and we're not going to hear anything until March the 1st. And you're going to see people getting annoyed and panicking and everything else. Expect the same thing. They're not going to go to a salary cap because the lower end teams do not want to. They do not want to pay $150,000, $270,000. The fight that's going on over here right now is the revenue sharing, and this is what I talk about all the time on Twitter and stuff. Is the amount of money that, you know, I don't think the luxury tax is not necessarily what annoys Steinbrenner and, you know, Levine and everything. It's the amount of revenue sharing that they have to give these other teams. So they're paying revenue sharing, and then they're paying the luxury tax. Those are two taxes, amounts hundreds of $1 million that are leaving the Yankees organization, going to teams like the Rays and the A's, and to have owners pocketing that money. I think.
Don't forget the Pirates.
What's that?
Don't forget the Pirates.
Yep. And he's a billionaire, I believe, the owner of that, right? So you're taking money, and I think the fight between the owners are going to be taken out on the players. You know what I mean? I think you're going to see a civil war really in the owners, you know, atmosphere. And unfortunately, the players are going to be the ones, and they're at least saying like, listen, we don't want to be involved. But I mean, I don't know. This could be the first year in a long time I do not mind the Yankees go playing the Rays in Tampa, right? Right? I mean, this is like a dream come true. And I don't know who it was, but somebody said that somebody took the over under that, like, how many home runs Judge or Bellinger hits at Steinbrenner Field. You know what I mean? This year. And I mean, so I don't feel like there's going to be something, but it's kind of crazy if you think about it. This is a $10 billion sport, and we have two teams playing in minor league stadiums.
Let me address this comment by Drew real quick. He says he's not a fan of the international free agent thing. All players should have to go to the draft. I am vehemently against a draft for the IFA. There is no infrastructure for it. I've been hearing things about it. Japan and Korea wouldn't even be under it. And my biggest concern is just look at what a draft has done to Puerto Rico's state of baseball.
Yeah.
How many Puerto Rican baseball players were on rosters in opening day last year? I think it was 3. DR had about 190. Venezuela had about 130. Even Cuba had more players than Puerto Ricans in the on the Open 88 rosters. And in a time where baseball is growing so much, I mean, just go to a WBC game, right? You come down here to Miami to watch DR play Puerto Rico, watch DR play Venezuela, watch Venezuela play Mexico, whatever it may be. Any of these international teams, those games are sold out within minutes. Minutes. There is an appetite for international baseball and international players. And if you implement the draft, it's just going to kill baseball in those countries.
Well, my question is, I believe what I've read is like from their ideas, isn't it? It's just a purely Dominican, or I get, no, I don't want to, not just Dominican, but purely
America, Caribbean.
Caribbean, and I guess South American, Venezuela, but just a draft for them where they're not. It's separate from the the regular 4A entry player college high school draft where it's, and I think the idea was there's a rotation of where you pick each year. So you're going to pick first once every 30 years. Is that something that's better? Because that way because I know the issue right now is these kids are signing deals at like 12 years old.
They're not signing deals. They're not signing deals.
They're agreeing to deals.
Right. It's just it's pretty much a handshake.
Yeah, but obviously that leaves a lot of situations where you could be left dry and
right. You can.
So I think is an international draft, just purely international, is that more appealing to you, or are you saying like even that is going to hurt the Latin baseball?
Well, we already have proof of what an international draft has done to international drafting has done to an international baseball. Look at Puerto Rico, like I just said. Look at
they're part of the MLB draft. That's my thing.
You don't have your Juan Gonzalez's. Where's your Roberto Alomar? Where are all these guys? The only guy that I can think of right now is Lindor and Sugar Diaz. Those are the only guys that I can think of.
This is a thing, and I agree with Los on this one, and how the owners do this. They're making a big deal about an international draft. I believe the international system is a lot better than when we were kids and how they used to do deals and you didn't get birth certificates. It's better now, and I don't mind that.
Better than 10 years ago.
Yeah, exactly. The problem is this: you could give the A's, Pirates, all these teams, the Marlins, all these international players, you give them all these draft picks. Their owners are not spending. It does not matter who's getting these players when they get to the major league level, they're there or then they're traded. They use that as a crutch or as an excuse. But the fact of the matter, you could have the greatest farm system, but once they get to the major level, if your owner's not paying you, they're going to trade you, and you're still going to stink. So it doesn't matter. They were going to hold up the last CBA on the international draft, and they were going to form a committee and stuff. For what reason? When is that going to start?
For
paying their players?
Not to cut you off, but I for the life of me, I don't get it. You buy a team, but then you don't want it.
Yeah.
What is the point of that?
Because it's a tax write-off.
They've already gotten rid of what? They got rid of the internet. They got rid of the midseason league. They want to contract even more.
Uh-huh.
If you do that, I think the product would be hurt so much because you're going to cut development time once again.
I mean,
so
the
they're
whole
not interested
thing
in growing the game. They're interested in growing revenues, and cutting around the margins is how they know how to take a hatchet to that stuff, because that's what they do in business. So drill in the minor leagues, hurting amateur baseball. This internet, look at how convoluted and ridiculous the major league draft is for the domestic players. You think they're going to be able to put something effective in place for an international draft?
And they're going to have players registered? Yeah, that's not going to happen. This is what
I went to school at Virginia Tech, probably representing, and the Pulaski Yankees played 40 minutes from them.
Yeah.
And so when I would get down to school at the beginning of the semester in August, I would always go to a game or two. I remember seeing Alexander Vizcaino pitch there. He was traded to the Cubs for Anthony Rizzo. There's a few more players that I remember. Drew Waters, prospect for the Braves, was there. Those were always so fun to go to. That league doesn't exist anymore. Now they turned the Pulaski into a college summer baseball league. It is a shame that these leagues are gone, because a big thing, you'll see guys on Baseball America and other, prospect websites say is the jump from FCL to A- to Tampa is very difficult. It's like maybe more difficult than the jump from high A to double A now, because these are kids who've never played full season and never played real competition. You know, jumping into leagues. A lot of the guys in low A are, you know, guys who played in college and played in organized baseball for, you know, since they were 8, 9 years old. And it's, you know, that jump is a lot more difficult than it used to be. So it's definitely something where it's hurting the product on the field, for, you know, the benefit of,
And
you
from
know,
the
a
fan
little bit of cost
standpoint,
shaving.
a couple years ago, I was at spring training and I was standing next to a kid who was a young teenager and his eyes were this big. And so he said something to me. We started talking. He's from, I want to say he's from Nebraska. And this is his, you know, bucket list trip. And so he gets to see the Yankees up close. And I'm standing next to him and I'm talking about, well, I get to go watch them play when they come to Binghamton, and I go to Scranton. I watch them play quite often. I drive down to Hudson Valley. I could get in my car and go watch minor league baseball whenever I want to. There are places in this country where you cannot do that. You're not 6 hours from a minor league baseball game. How is that good for growing a fan base and growing interest in the game when you're cutting away leagues and teams and people cannot go and watch baseball unless they get on a plane?
You know what? I'm going to say that right there. I'm going to parlay from what you just said. I had a scout friend who was telling me in the next 10 years, expect 2 levels in the minor leagues. And what you're going to have is basically not a scrimmage, but each complex would have the kids play. You know, you're the Yankee A versus Yankee B, and then go up these 2 levels because they do not want to pay or subsidize these minor league facilities. It's not about growing, like you said, it should be growing the sport. It's about keeping the revenues down. So as they cut, there used to be a time that some teams used to have 8 teams.
Mhm.
8 teams. We're down to, I believe, 4, right?
And we're talking 5 years ago, if there were 8
Five.
teams.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're talking about 4, and then
you do that, and it's basically the NBA. Look at it, the NBA now.
Yeah.
It's unwatchable.
Yes.
It's straight trash. Like I completely stopped watching the NBA.
That's what they're looking for. They're looking for 2, a double A and a triple A, that they will still be around. Everything else will be complex ball. So when those guys that you have in the complex are ready to move up to those levels, you do that. You want to play unlimited amount of games at Heinz Field, do whatever you want to do. It's up to you. And then when they're ready, they move up over there. They got rid of short season that way. That's why the draft is in July. Like you were talking about the Appalachian League. That used to be a great league. There used to be 60 games.
Penley, wasn't it?
Manny
Yeah,
Ramirez one year, I think, went off, but as when he was like 18 years old, he had like 21 home runs. I remember that, like in 91, 92. So I was in high school. I remember that stuff. Those leagues are gone. Those college leagues are gone. So that's why a college pitcher drafted now does not play his first year at all. And if they're due, there's how many, 20 rounds, 1,000 guys get drafted, and maybe 5 pitchers from that draft will pitch in that current year. Everybody else will start the next year. So everything is going right into the complex. They're putting film on you. They're putting those scanners on you, and they're building you for there. And that's the future.
It's sad, but it's, you know, probably, I mean, I can definitely see it happening. We're just, you know, it's something I don't want to think about too much just because it's kind of depressing, you know, being a big fan of the minor leagues and following these kids.
Yeah.
And, you know, yeah, I mean, it does make sense in a financial standpoint of, oh, why have these 4 different leagues we're paying for housing for and whatnot when we can just put, you know, all these kids in Florida and have them play all the other teams around Florida. You know, it's just kind of like almost like the spring training system. Just have them bus them up to Sarasota, bus them to Fort Myers, bus them down to Port St. Lucie. It's I understand it, but it's not the same developmental wise at all.
You're going to see more teams. I hate to say this because it's ridiculous to say, but it's the truth. You're going to see more teams in the next 10, 15 years like the Savannah Bananas,
Jesus Christ,
than actual real teams. Because like you just said, you know, they could draw 60,000 people at certain stadiums. That's a fact. They're printing cash. Whereas Aaron just said, you're going to play them in Florida or Arizona. They're going to be housed in dormitories. They're going to have the best training, the best food. And when they're ready to move up, they'll move them up to those 2 leagues. But if you're only having a AA and a AAA, like you said, there's going to be many towns in this country who will never see baseball.
And if you want to draw athletes, cutting jobs is not way to do it. If you want to bring athletes into the sport, they're going to go someplace else where there's more opportunity.
Well, what is it? Gonna leave you guys on that note.
Yeah, very depressing way to end it. Can we talk like let's make one? I'm sorry to take over command.
Yeah.
Season's coming up. What's one? I know. Let's kind of change it a little bit. Not maybe talk about the highlight guys. What's one prospect you're very interested in watching in the minor leagues this upcoming season? You know, minor league ball starts next week, I believe. So let's just everyone give one prospect you're super excited. I'll start. I'm big Grayson Carter fan. I think him as a starter is going to be super intriguing to see how it works. I don't expect him to be pitching, many innings each start, but when you have a guy who can throw 103 miles per hour, that is salivating. So I hope that he's, if he can, have a strikeout rate above 30% and a walk rate below 15% as a starter in his first season, I consider that a big win. I can't wait to see him on the mound, and I'm guessing Tampa.
Griffin Herring. They love LSU arms. I know Thatcher Hurd got hurt. He's been really good out of the pen. I watched a lot of the LSU games last year. He signed for a little bit more money. Do they start him? Do they piggyback him? That system desperately needs left-hand pitching. So he's one of the few arms that I am watching that are left-handed. So he's my guy.
2 guys on the Prospect Revenge Tour this year: Brando Maia, Rock Riggio. I'm looking forward to seeing those guys.
Yeah, Brando Maia is one of my guys, and the other guy for me is Edglin Perez. Very excited to see him.
Did you see Josh Norris of Baseball America posted a video from an intra-squad?
I did.
That's a cannon. That if he can hit decently, hopefully he can be what Antonio Gomez couldn't. He's exciting.
Yep. All right, guys, I want to thank you all for coming on. Marcus, Aaron, Bobby, thank you all for coming on. Guys, I appreciate you in the chat. If you could hit that like and hit that subscribe if you haven't done so already. And we'll catch you on the next episode. Later, guys.
You guys, take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you.